When I look at the best defensive player that ever played the game, I don't put myself number one. I'm looking at Reggie White as number one. And when he lined up against you, everybody's praying, you praying that he don't hurt you.
Lawrence Taylor versus Reggie White. The NFL crowned the wrong defender. Philadelphia, September 29, 1985. The stadium is loud, and then, for one play, it isn't. A newcomer most casual fans had never laid eyes on, a former unanimous All-American who'd spent 2 years starring in a rival league most of the country had stopped watching, steps onto an NFL field for the first time. And by the fourth quarter, he's already put the whole building into stunned, disbelieving silence. His team is going to lose this game in overtime. None of that matters. 2.5 sacks later, everyone in that stadium, coaches, players, the guy hawking hot dog, knows they just watched something they've never seen before. His name is Reggie White, and on the other sideline, wearing number 56 for the New York Giants, is the man who's about to spend the next 8 years proving he's still the scariest thing in football, Lawrence Taylor. For 40 years, this hasn't even been a debate. Ask a coach, ask a Hall of Famer, ask anyone who's ever watched the tape with their jaw on the floor. One name comes out first, every single time. Lawrence Taylor, the greatest defensive player who ever lived.
Man, Lawrence was such a great, dominant player. I mean, you probably will never see a player like him. They try to compare guys to him. There's no comparison. I mean, he was that good.
He is certainly among the very greatest players to ever play this game.
But sit with the numbers long enough, and something starts to gnaw at you. 142 sacks for Taylor, 198 for White, 10 Pro Bowls for Taylor, 13 straight, no gaps, no down years for White. Taylor terrified the league for the better part of a decade. White did it for nearly 20 years, 17 as a professional, counting the 2 he spent wrecking quarterbacks in the USFL before the NFL ever got its hands on him. The numbers are screaming a name. It isn't the one you're used to hearing. One of these men has been robbed of his rightful title for 4 decades. Tonight, we find out which one. Lawrence Taylor versus Reggie White. The NFL crowned the wrong defender. The arrival of fear. Before he was a legend, he was a scared kid in a small house in Williamsburg, Virginia, listening to his father come home exhausted from the shipyard. Nobody in that house had any reason to believe the name Taylor would ever hang from the rafters in Canton. Then North Carolina put him at outside linebacker, almost as an accident, and accidentally built a nightmare. By his senior year, he wasn't playing college football anymore. He was hunting it. 16 sacks, 22 tackles for loss, a conference championship, a consensus All-American. Coaches sat in film rooms rewinding the same play over and over, not because they didn't understand it, but because they couldn't quite believe it. The Giants took him second overall in 1981. 4 months later, NFL offenses stopped sleeping easy. Nobody had a name for what he did to a blocking scheme. He wasn't faster than the tackles assigned to stop him. He was faster by a margin that felt unfair. He didn't just hit hard, he hit like something you'd owe an apology to. As a rookie, before the league even bothered to count sacks as an official stat, he piled up 9.5 of them anyway, and did something that had never happened before. Defensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. Same season, same 22-year-old. Washington's own head coach, Joe Gibbs, got so desperate, he invented an entirely new position just to survive facing Taylor twice a year, an extra blocker stationed on Taylor's side of the field, for a role that didn't even have a name yet. Today, you know it as the H-back.
You can't block Lawrence Taylor with a back. You can't block Lawrence Taylor by turning the tackle out on him. The best way to try and prevent him from killing you is to put a tight end in his face, which was the beginning of the H.
It's been sitting in NFL playbooks for 4 decades. It exists because one linebacker made every offense in football feel naked. By 1986, Taylor wasn't just good. He was playing on a different frequency, than the rest of the sport.
Hey, Sula, you better hope I never get back in there. I will kick your ass.
Son, I gotta do better than this.
20.5 sacks, still a Giants franchise record, and for over 3 decades the standard for what a linebacker could do to a football game, until Pittsburgh's T.J. Watt matched Michael Strawn's all-time single-season mark of 22.5 in 2021. Then, that December, something happened that has only occurred twice in NFL history. The Associated Press named a defensive player most valuable player of the entire league. It wasn't unanimous. Taylor won it comfortably, 41 votes to Eric Dickerson's 17 and Dan Marino's 9. But it was a landslide, making him just the second defensive player ever to win it outright, after Minnesota's Alan Page in 1971. Nobody has done it since. He carried the Giants to their first championship that same year, 6 straight seasons of first-team All-Pro, an entire half-decade at the top of his position, before the rest of the league even figured out how to plan around him.
There's Lawrence Taylor with one man trying to block him. It can't happen. One man cannot block Lawrence Taylor.
This is the part of the story where Taylor isn't just winning the argument, he's suffocating it. But every king, this untouchable, eventually finds out what the throne costs. Taylor's bill was about to come due, and it was going to be public, and it was going to be ugly.
The man hidden behind the mythology.
Forget the highlight reel for a second. Forget the name. Just look at what the box score is trying to tell you. A defensive lineman in Philadelphia is averaging more than a sack a game for 8 straight years. In a season chopped down to 12 games by a player's strike, he still puts up 21 sacks, a pace that over a full 16-game schedule would have obliterated the all-time record. Across 4 seasons, he racks up 70 sacks. Not a career, 4 seasons, 70. And somehow, history still treats him like the runner-up. The name you mention right after you say Lawrence Taylor. Like a footnote, nobody bothered to double-check. His name is Reggie White. You already watched how he introduced himself to the league, that gut punch overtime loss in Philadelphia. That first NFL sack total against the very team Taylor anchored. Herman Edwards was standing in that defensive backfield that day, and even he couldn't quite process what he'd just watched. I had never seen anyone that big and that strong who could move that fast. Before any of that, White was a teenager in Chattanooga, ordained a Baptist minister at 17 years old. The nickname wrote itself, the Minister of Defense.
And that's how I got the nickname. And I want to be as much as a leader as I can. I want to be an example to people. And I feel that if I go out and play well, the rest of the guys will play well.
At Tennessee, he left as SEC Player of the Year.
He didn't even walk a straight line into the league. He started in the USFL, and the Eagles still had to burn the 4th pick of a supplemental draft just to pry him loose.
Then Philadelphia built one of the most feared defensive fronts the sport has ever seen around him.
White, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons, and watched him become the engine that made the whole machine terrifying.
The greatest, I would probably have to say, I struggle to say between Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White. I'll just say Reggie White because I just know that, the way he dominated the defensive end position.
Yeah.
And the week of practice, you would always see our coaches, our offensive coordinators taking out certain plays in the playbook, saying, no, we're not going to run this to Reggie's side. We got to, obviously slide the protection to his side and doing all these things, making all these adjustments in the game plan for him, and you still couldn't stop him.
Back-to-back league sack titles, 12 different seasons of double-digit sacks, a level of consistency that shouldn't be physically possible for a man that size. Even Taylor's own locker room felt it. Years later, Phil Simms, the quarterback Taylor spent a decade protecting, sat through 15 years of game planning meetings against every great defense the league had to offer, and only one name ever hijacked the whiteboard.
Reggie White, man, oh man, we had a relationship. He hit me so many times.
It always started with Reggie, Simms said. Reggie White this, Reggie White that. Reggie. Where's Reggie? Point to Reggie.
He had a name for what that Eagles defense did to opposing offenses, their reign of terror. Panic versus power. Here's where the stat sheet stops mattering and the terror takes over. Taylor hunted, White crushed. Different animals. Same ending, a quarterback flat on his back, staring at the lights, wondering what just happened. Taylor made you guess. Before every single snap, an entire offense had to ask itself the same question. Where is he? Rushing, dropping into coverage, already untouched and closing fast? You couldn't game plan panic. You could only try to survive it.
They need to change this game plan. They got me blocking LT. I'm going to do my job, but they need to slide one of them big offensive tackles, and I'll help the tackle out. I'll chip him out on the way.
I'll chip him on the way. One-on-one.
So I remember LT, it was a third down, and I dropped back, and it was 3rd and 8, and I had to get the first down or game's over. And I took off, and I'm running, and all of a sudden, here comes LT. And I put my hand out as big as I could make, and I tried to stiff arm in his face as hard as I could. And I got him, but I didn't get the first down.
White never needed to hide anywhere. You knew exactly where he'd line up. You knew exactly what he was about to try. It didn't matter. He beat you anyway, in full view, like he was daring you to stop him and daring you to fail at the same time.
Ask an offensive lineman from that decade
which one he'd rather face on a Sunday, and you'll get a room split straight down the middle. Some take Taylor because at least you knew a fight was coming for you specifically. Others take White because knowing exactly what's coming and still losing anyway is its own private kind of hell. The games that turned humans into myths. Every legend has the night the myth outgrows the man. Taylor has too, and they could not be more different from each other. November 18th, 1985. Monday Night Football. RFK Stadium is packed and roaring, and none of that matters in about 4 seconds. A flea flicker goes wrong. Taylor comes off the edge with nobody touching him.
and by the time he reaches Joe Theismann's leg snaps.
A compound fracture so violent, the men calling the game on national television can barely finish the sentence.
Really bad when Lawrence Taylor leaped to his feet and beckoned over to the Redskins bench. Get your medical team in here quick.
It ends Theismann's career on that exact play, in that exact second. Taylor doesn't celebrate. He's on his feet instantly, screaming for the trainers, hands clamped on his own head like he's trying to hold himself together. He has said on the record more than once that he has never watched the replay, not one time. Then, silence. Not the quiet of a broadcast, the quiet of a fall. August 1988. The NFL suspends Taylor 30 days. His second failed drug test, cocaine. The news breaks in the middle of training camp, in front of everyone. And for the first time in his career, the league, his teammates, and the entire country watched Lawrence Taylor lose. 4 games later, he comes back. And on November 27th, against the Saints, with a torn pectoral muscle so severe, he's strapped into a harness just to keep his own shoulder from dislocating. He plays what his own head coach, Bill Parcells, a man who does not hand out compliments, calls flatly the greatest game he ever saw. 7 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a 1-point win to keep the season alive. 3 months removed from the worst headline of his career. Taylor's words afterward, still in visible pain. I don't know how I made it.
After the game, we're in the locker room, and I said, that was the best. That's the best I've seen you do. And he told me, he said, I don't know how I ever got through that one, Bill.
White's chapter doesn't carry that kind of scar tissue. His is just pure, uninterrupted devastation. Opening day, 1987, against Washington. White sacks Doug Williams, rips the ball loose, scoops it up himself, and takes it 70 yards to the house. That's the opening line of a season that ends with him leading the entire NFL in sacks. Then there's the move nobody in the league ever solved. Linemen started calling it the hump. White would grab a 300-pound human being, lift him clean off the turf, and toss him aside like a screen door, clearing a straight lane to the quarterback. There was no counter for it.
And there's Reggie White, and that's that hump move. That's the one, he learned that from Howie Long. Here's the hump. You go up the field, get the right arm in, get him moving that way, and then go inside him. He just goes back and just boom.
Coaches didn't design a defense against it. They just prayed he'd have an off day. He almost never did. Super Bowl 31, January 1997. 3 sacks, a Super Bowl record at the time, closing out a championship a decade in the making. Then 1998, the season he turned 37, an age when most pass rushers are already doing color commentary. 16 sacks, a second Defensive Player of the Year award. Father Time doesn't usually lose to a defensive end that old. That year he did. And then, the moment that changes everything you thought you understood about this rivalry. Sometime during the 1993 season, Reggie White did something to Lawrence Taylor that no 300-pound blocker in a decade of trying ever managed. He passed him. White's career total climbed past Taylor's official mark of 132.5, making him the new all-time sack leader in NFL history. And he did it during Taylor's own final season, while Taylor was still active, still trying to walk away from the game on his own terms. 2 men who spent 8 years trying to end each other's Sundays, and one of them ended the other's legacy while he was still standing there to feel it happen. The argument. Taylor cannot win statistically. That single moment in 1993 is the whole case, distilled into one gut punch of a beat. Everything else just piles on. 12 seasons of double-digit sacks for White, 7 for Taylor. Positional versatility. White wrecked games from 2 different spots on the line. Late career dominance, not close. White was winning Defensive Player of the Year when most rushers his age are already retired. Longevity. 13 consecutive Pro Bowls for White, with the Hall of Fame crediting him with 10 first-team All-Pro nods against a Taylor run that's mostly bunched into one blazing decade. And here's the detail that stings the most if you're standing on Taylor's side of this argument. White's story never has a chapter like 1988. No suspension, no public reckoning. He wasn't perfectly durable, nobody who plays 15 years is, but he was never once suspended, and across 9 straight seasons, from 1985 through 1993, he never once posted fewer than 10 sacks. Even ESPN's own panel of analysts debating this exact matchup couldn't get around it. Tim McManus put it plainly. You can argue that Taylor flashed the brightest, but White was a relentless, unstoppable force for the better part of 2 decades. Sacks alone can't measure everything Taylor changed about the sport, but every time this argument turns into math, Reggie White wins the math. The argument. White cannot win emotionally. Now flip it, because this isn't over. Nobody who watched Lawrence Taylor play in the 1980s has ever fully recovered from it. He didn't look like a football player. He looked like something the sport hadn't built a defense for yet. Faster than the position was supposed to allow, more violent than any blocker was mentally prepared to survive. Sports writers at the time reached for the closest comparison they had, and the phrase that stuck, credited to Sports Illustrated's Paul Zimmerman, was that watching Taylor arrive felt like watching an emissary from another planet. That's not hyperbole. That's what it felt like to share a field with him. He had an aura no spreadsheet, no analytics department, no stat page will ever replicate. The sense that on any single snap, Lawrence Taylor could end your game, end your season, end your career, and you wouldn't see it coming until it already happened.
We specialize in hitting people.
That's why grown men, Hall of Famers, still go a little quiet when his name comes up in a room. The record he never got to defend. And here is where this story stops being fun. Reggie White never got old enough to enjoy any of it. Early on the morning of December 26, 2004, at his home in Cornelius, North Carolina, White began struggling to breathe. His wife called 911. He was rushed to a hospital nearby, where he was pronounced dead. He was 43. Medical examiners identified cardiac and pulmonary sarcoidosis, a disease he'd quietly lived with for years, as the probable trigger, with sleep apnea likely a contributing factor. 2 years later, in 2006, the Hall of Fame inducted him on the first ballot. His bust went up in bronze. He wasn't there to see it. He never heard this argument. He never got to sit across from a camera and hear someone rank him ahead of Lawrence Taylor. He broke Taylor's record in 1993, and 11 years later he was gone, before the football world had even finished catching up to what it had just watched him do. Lawrence Taylor is still here. He can defend his own legacy in his own words anytime he wants. Reggie White can't. Every word left in this video, he doesn't get to take a bow for. What does unblockable actually mean? Before the verdict comes down, the word itself needs a definition. If unblockable means the player who terrified an entire league into rewriting its own playbook, that's Taylor, hands down. He's the reason a position exists that didn't used to. But if unblockable means something colder, something harder to survive, the player who stayed dominant after every single adjustment had already been made against him, long after the element of surprise was gone, the answer flips.
Offenses could scheme all they wanted against Reggie White.
Slide the protection his way, chip him with a tight end, double him every snap. None of it was a secret, and it still, more often than not, wasn't enough. Under that definition, White wins, and it isn't close. Anybody can look unstoppable for a season before the league figures out the counter. That's the easy kind of dominance. The hard kind is staying unstoppable a decade later, after every coordinator in the league has had years of film, years of failed game plans, and every reason in the world to solve you, and still couldn't. Taylor was the threat nobody saw coming. White was the threat everybody saw coming every single week, and still couldn't stop. Final verdict. This isn't a soft landing, this is a verdict. Lawrence Taylor was football's greatest defensive disruptor.
He rewrote how offenses were built.
Alone, from a linebacker spot, nobody had ever weaponized that way before him. That impact doesn't fade. It's why his name still comes out first, before the question is even finished. But the most unblockable defender the NFL ever put on a field was Reggie White. Not the loudest legend, not the first name out of your mouth, the one who kept winning, year after year, long after the league had already thrown everything it had at him, and the one who never got to hear anybody say so. Lawrence Taylor versus Reggie White, the NFL crowned the wrong defender. And the wrong defender has been standing in that spotlight for 40 years. If this just wrecked everything you thought you knew, smash that like button and subscribe to End Zone Exposed. We do this every week, and we don't pull punches. Drop a comment right now, Team Taylor or Team White. Fight about it below. We'll be reading.
Taylor made the offense search for him.
White made the offense watch him coming and lose anyway.
End Zone Exposed is where the truth always scores.